Welcome, friends. Tonight's story is about a moment that forever changed the life of a millionaire widower. He had everything: wealth, status, respect. But after the passing of his wife, he lived with nothing but emptiness. His world revolved around his little daughter, and to care for her, he hired a kind-hearted young nanny. To him, she was just an employee, nothing more. Or so he thought. But one rainy evening, everything changed. After work, he noticed the nanny didn't head home the way she usually did. Something about her quiet steps caught his attention. Out of curiosity and maybe concern, he followed her at a distance. His expensive leather shoes splashed in the puddles, his trench coat soaking in the drizzle, while she walked ahead with two heavy brown shopping bags in her hands. Street lamps flickered in the rain as she stopped in front of a small, broken-down house. He watched from the shadows, unsure of what he might discover. Slowly, she entered the house, and the widower stepped closer, peeking through the half-open door. What he saw froze him in place. Inside, in a dimly lit room, two small children lay on a thin mattress, coughing weakly. The nanny rushed to them, dropping the bags to the floor. She unpacked food, medicine, and warm clothes she had just bought. With tears in her eyes, she stroked their hair and whispered, "Mama's here. You'll be okay." In that moment, the millionaire's heart broke. She had spent the little she earned caring for her own 6 siblings, all while dedicating her days to loving and protecting his daughter. She carried her own pain silently, never once asking for help. The widower's chest tightened, his eyes filled with tears. For the first time, he didn't see her as just the nanny. He saw her as a woman of strength, sacrifice, and endless love. And at that moment he made a vow: she will never struggle alone again. "Not while I have the power to change her life." That rainy evening transformed him. He no longer saw himself as a man who had lost everything, because standing before him was someone who could heal not only his daughter's heart, but his own. And friends, this story reminds us, sometimes the people we overlook are the very ones who carry the most extraordinary hearts. If this story touched you, please don't forget. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. And always stay connected with Soul of Kindness. Welcome, friends. The widower stood in the rain, his heart pounding harder than the storm around him. He leaned quietly against the lamppost outside the shabby little house, his luxury car parked just down the street, a symbol of wealth. Yet he felt powerless in that moment. Inside, he watched the nanny kneel on the damp floor. She opened the bag she carried and pulled out fresh bread, fruit, and a small packet of medicine. The children's frail faces lit up at the sight of her, even as their tiny hands trembled with weakness. "Eat slowly. Mama's here," she whispered, her voice breaking. She tore the bread into pieces and gently fed them, wiping away their tears with the sleeve of her worn-out shirt. The millionaire's throat tightened. He remembered how many times she had smiled at his daughter, how patient she had been during the child's tantrums, how gently she tucked her into bed at night. He realized now it wasn't just a job for her. She carried the heart of a mother, though she was barely surviving herself. For the first time in years, he felt shame. Shame for assuming she was simply an employee. Shame for never asking if she was okay. While he lived in a mansion with chandeliers and servants, this woman, who had given his daughter nothing but love, was living in silence, carrying the weight of the world alone. The rain poured harder, but he didn't move. His expensive coat was soaked through, his polished shoes ruined, yet he couldn't tear his eyes away. His soul was fighting with itself. How many nights has she gone hungry so her siblings could eat? How many times did she wipe her tears before stepping into my home, pretending everything was fine? At that moment, he wasn't looking at her with the eyes of a millionaire. He was looking at her with the eyes of a man, broken, humbled, and overwhelmed. The widower pressed his hand over his chest, whispering softly into the rain. "I thought I had lost everything when my wife died, but tonight I realize I still have a chance to build something beautiful again. She isn't just my daughter's nanny. She's the reason I still believe in kindness." And this second scene deepens the emotion, showing the inner conflict of the widower and the quiet strength of the nanny. Friends, like, subscribe, comment, share, and आपका अपना channel Soul of Kindness. Welcome, friends. The rain had quieted down, but inside the little house, the storm of emotions only grew stronger. The millionaire widower finally stepped forward. His shoes echoed against the wet floorboards as he entered. The nanny froze, her eyes wide with shock. She hadn't expected to see him there, standing in her hidden world, his expensive coat dripping water onto the fragile floor. Her lips trembled. Sir, why are you here? For a long moment he couldn't speak. His throat was tight, his heart heavy. He looked at the sick children lying on the mattress, then back at the young woman who had been quietly carrying a burden greater than her years. Finally, in a broken whisper, he said, I followed you tonight, and I saw everything. Forgive me for never asking about your life, for never seeing the pain behind your smile. You give so much love to my daughter, while your own family suffers in silence. Why didn't you ever tell me? Tears welled in her eyes, but she forced a small smile. Because, sir, it is not your burden. You already carry enough grief. My duty is to care for your little girl, not to trouble you with mine. The widower's chest ached. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. No, from this moment on, your pain is my pain. You are not just my daughter's nanny, you are part of our family. And I will not let you fight this battle alone. Her hands shook as she tried to hold back her tears. But one glance at his face told her he wasn't speaking as an employer. He was speaking as a man whose heart had finally awakened. For the first time since his wife's passing, the millionaire felt something powerful stirring within him. Hope. The hope of rebuilding a family, of giving love not only to his daughter, but to the woman who had silently proven her worth with sacrifice. In that small broken home, among the sound of rain and the faint laughter of children tasting warm food, the widower realized love doesn't always arrive in wealth or luxury. Sometimes it hides in the quiet strength of someone who asks for nothing, yet gives everything. Friends, if this story touched your heart, remember this: real love is not about riches, it's about sacrifice, compassion and kindness. So don't forget, like, subscribe, comment and share, and always stay connected with Soul of Kindness. Welcome, friends. The following morning, the millionaire widower couldn't rest. The image of the nanny feeding her siblings, her tired eyes full of love and sacrifice, haunted him. He realized he couldn't just go back to his mansion and forget what he had seen. So instead of turning away, he returned to her little broken home. This time, not as a silent observer, but as a man ready to change everything. When he stepped inside, the children stirred awake. They blinked in confusion at the tall figure kneeling beside them, tucking the blanket gently around their shoulders. Sister, who is he? One of them asked softly. The nanny froze. She lowered her gaze, ashamed that her hidden struggles were laid bare. But before she could answer, the widower spoke, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. I am someone who should have been here long ago, and from today, I promise, you will never be alone again. Within moments, his calls brought doctors into that small house. Medicines, groceries, and warm clothes filled the room. The air that once smelled of dampness and despair was now alive with hope. The nanny's hands trembled as she watched silently. Her lips quivered as tears slipped down her cheeks. Why are you doing all this for me? She whispered, her voice breaking. The widower stepped closer, his eyes glistening. Because you gave my daughter love when I had none left to give. You healed her with your smile, even while carrying your own pain. Last night I realized you are more than my daughter's nanny. You are the light that brought my family back to life. His voice cracked, but he continued, dropping to his knees before her. From this moment on, your burden is my burden. Your family is my family. I lost my wife, but maybe God has given me another chance at love through you. Please don't shut me out. The nanny covered her face with her hands, sobbing. For years, she had carried pain silently, never expecting anyone to notice. And now here he was, a man who had everything, kneeling on the floor of her broken home, choosing her above the world. The children smiled faintly, sensing something beautiful unfolding. And for the widower, it was the first time in years that his heart felt alive again. Friends, if this scene touched your heart, remember, true love isn't built on riches, but on sacrifice, compassion and kindness. So don't forget. Like, subscribe, comment and share. Stay connected with Soul of Kindness.